All right, welcome on to a Real 2K recap where I break down all the real life happenings in the NBA and incorporate them into my 2K roster, recapping all games for Friday, February 7th, 2025, featuring Real 2K rosters, the modern era, patreon.com/Real 2K rosters, making a comeback. Who's not making a comeback? The Washington Wizards! They lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers 134 to 124, although it was a competitive game. Kyle Kuzma's reign of terror is over. Jordan Poole, career high, 45 points, 16 of 32 from the field, 4 of 17 from the three-point line, 9 of 11 on free throws. So that means he went 12 of 15 on twos, 80%, and then shot less than 25% from three, 4 of 17. Disgusting. If he actually shot threes at like a reasonable rate, he could have gone for 60. God. The Wizards changed up their lineup due to the moving out Kuzma. They started Bub Carrington at the two. Bilal Coulibaly moved back to the three, and Kaishan George, he's the small ball four, as they are pretty thin up front. The Washington Wizards are. They don't have an actual power forward on this roster except for the whatever Anthony Gill is. Anthony Sarr did not play in this game. He's been out for about 2 weeks. So Alex Len, he's still unavailable, having been acquired in trade. So Richaun Holmes got the start, and Tristan Vucevic. I have to improve both of the ratings for these guys. I'll try to get that done in the next day or two, as they were the center rotation for this team. Chris Middleton was out with rest? Question mark. He missed the last 2 games for the Bucks. He's just going to be day to day for pretty much the rest of his career. I think he had double ankle surgery during the offseason. Malcolm Brogdon, he missed a game with the groin injury, so he was out. Marcus Smart's been out a while. So this is kind of the hospital Wizards. If they were healthy, their bench is better than their starting unit, but really this team is just like a graveyard for NBA teams to dump their injured, overpaid players. Now, on the Cavs end, they're still waiting on DeAndre Hunter's debut, so I'm not going to cover too much for them. Mitchell, Mobley, and Garland combined for 84 points. Let's hop on over to the San Antonio Spurs. The Hornets beat the Spurs 117 to 116 on a pretty crazy sequence. De'Aaron Fox hit the go-ahead mid-range jumper with 8 seconds remaining in the game. And followed up by that, LaMelo drove to the basket, found a wide-open Miles Bridges in the corner for a three. Nobody was within 10 feet. They all collapsed onto LaMelo. And Fox, after the timeout, he hit what looked like a game-winning three at the buzzer, but it was still in his hands when the buzzer expired. So they did not get the game winner. But aside from Fox, who had in his second game with the Spurs had 22 points, 6 assists, you'll notice I have his position at shooting guard because he is starting next to Chris Paul. So I bumped up Devin Vassell to small forward. And this also means that Stephen Castle is coming off the bench. He stole the show in this one, had 33 points, a career high off the bench. Well, actually, I'm not sure if that's a career high, but it was a franchise record for points by a rookie off the bench. And yeah, it was his career high. He was 10 of 15 from the field, 3 of 5 on threes, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. LaMelo and Nick Smith were the opposing backcourt, so that kind of had something to do with that. I think he did play both guard spots in this one, as Paul and Fox and Castle were the 3 rotating guards. He moved to the bench ultimately because he's not a great three-point shooter, so he's not going to be somebody who plays well next to Fox, but he was able to get some energy, and he also had a pretty nice alley-oop dunk in this one. So I went through and crunched some of his numbers and stuff, and I ended up giving him 3 more badges, looking through things. He didn't have pogo stick, which I thought was weird, so I gave him silver. Aerial Wizard, he's got 7 alley-oops on the year, which is pretty good for a guard, so I gave him Wizard. And then Posterizer, just to help out his dunking. He is averaging about a dunk per game. So overall, but he's also a pretty good playmaker as well, pretty good finisher, but just an awful awful mid-range scorer essentially, and 3-point, basically anything that's not at the rim he has difficulty with. although he did shoot it well in this one. But otherwise, he's 28% from three on the year, even though he was 3 for 5 in this one. And teams are really generally just leaving him open. Um, Wemby, he struggled in this one. 16 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks, but only shot 7 of 20 from the field, 1 of 9 on threes, only took one free throw. Kind of disappointing game for him. He did have a really nasty block where he didn't even jump. Like Daquan Jeffries just kind of went for a floater and like Wemby just put his hand up and like snatched it without even jumping. It was pretty sick. But offensively, he didn't have a great game. Really disappointing, given that the Hornets don't have anything in the way of centers, having traded Mark Williams, and they were still without Yusuf Nurkic in this one coming over in the trade. So they started Musa Diabate, who's on a two-way, and then Taj Gibson was the other center in this game. So Wemby absolutely, I think, tried to assert himself. I don't know if the guards got into too much of like a shooting contest because LaMelo and Nick Smith can't play like a defense. But focusing on what the Hornets did, Bridges, as mentioned, he had that game winner, 25 points. LaMelo, 24 points and 10 assists, including the game-winning assist. Nick Smith, he had 19 points in this one. In his last 3 games, he's averaged 22 points a game, 58% from the field, 57% from three, overall 13 of 23 from three. But I did not see fit to actually boost his rating. I do have him at the 88 three-point already. His 60 mid-range, though, 70 layup, not really good at finishing at the rim. He's the ultimate feast and famine player. He was over the last 3 games, he averaged 22. The 3 games prior to that, he shot 6 of 30 from the field, 0 of 14 from the 3-point line. So he shot 20% from the field versus the 57% that he shot from three over the last 3 games. So when you combine all that together, he was 13 of 37 from three over his last 6 games, only 35%. So yeah, super erratic. I could not bring myself to raise his rating. Um, Interesting to see what's going to happen with his role once Dalton Connect is in the mix. Is Smith going to continue to start? I would ultimately think that Connect is the vastly better player. So we'll see what happens there. Also worth noting that Elfrid Payton was signed to a 10-day contract. The Hornets have a full 15-man roster, so this is a hardship. They've been without Trey Mann for about 2 months. Brandon Miller's out for the rest of the season. Grant Williams also out for the season. And I believe Josh Okogie is out for 3 weeks or so. So they qualified for a hardship. Moving on over to the Detroit Pistons, who smoked the Sixers 125-112. The game was nowhere near as close as the final score indicates. The Pistons were up by 30 in the second half, and they did this without Cade Cunningham, who missed this game due to injury. So Asar Thompson got the start at point guard and had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Malik Beasley stole the show. He had 36 points on 9 of 19 three-point shooting, so the Sixers didn't play very much defense in this game. And they got embarrassed by Tobias Harris, who had his revenge game with 22 points and I believe 9 rebounds in this one. Also worth noting, Dennis Schroeder, who they picked up at the deadline, he was also not active. A lot of basically all the guys who were acquired at the deadline still going through their physicals, probably haven't had their first practice with their teams yet. So not too many guys have made their debuts yet. I think Fox has already played 2 games for the Spurs, but he wasn't acquired at the deadline. He was acquired like a day or two before. And then focusing on the 76ers. Their big three is finally healthy, but they still got killed in this one. Embiid, 23 points, but only 7 of 18 from the field, 8 for 10 from three. Not from three, but from the free throw line. Paul George, very quiet, 14 points, 1 rebound, no assists. Who knew that Tobias Harris's replacement would be an even worse player with an even worse contract? Justin Edwards got the start in this one rather than Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes was acquired at the... Actually, no, he wasn't acquired at the deadline. He was acquired the day before. He had 14 points but came off the bench in this one. Eric Gordon also came off the bench. He had 0 points on 0 of 4 from the field, 10 minutes. He just flat out sucks if he's not starting. I would just start him just because you're not going to get anything from him unless he's in the starting lineup, it feels like. But the Sixers do like Justin Edwards. He's played really well. Pretty good defensive player. Although it didn't show in this one, as he was kind of the primary matchup on Beasley for the most part. But he's somebody that'll probably end up with a standard contract as well. The Sixers did sign Chuma Okeke to a 10-day, but I didn't actually see if he played in this one. Let's head on over briefly to the Miami Heat. They got crushed by the Nets. The Nets beat them 102 to 86. Woof. As you can figure, Andrew Wiggins and company did not play in this one. The Nets defense held the Heat to 35% shooting. Tyler Hero was 6-22 from the field, 2 of 11 from 3. Definitely not an all-star worthy performance. And Jordi Fernandez, he just continues to pull coaching wins out of his ass. Like the Nets keep on winning games even though they're not supposed to. They have awful talent. Cam Thomas is hurt, but they had 13 blocks, including 4 by Nick Claxton to hold the Miami Heat. Ben Simmons, it's worth noting, I did cut from the team. He is not with them, negotiating a buyout, so there are a few playoff hopefuls that will be taking a look at him once he clears waivers. One of those teams that's a playoff hopeful is the Milwaukee Bucks. They are not eligible to sign Ben Simmons due to their apron proximity. They lost to the Atlanta Hawks 115 to 110. Giannis did not play, so Bobby Portis got the start and had a big one, 26 points, 15 rebounds, 6 assists. And Kyle Kuzma did play in this one, off the bench, though. 12 points, 4 of 13 shooting, so that checks. But he did shoot 3 of 8 from 3, so that is worth monitoring. That's going to be the major swing on whether or not this is a good move for the Bucks or not. He played power forward off the bench with Bobby Portis operating as the backup center for Brook Lopez, essentially, when Lopez hit the bench and Kuzma came in. I think personally that this is a terrible fit because Kuzma basically does all the same things that Giannis does. So how do they really even play together? Unless he's going to be much better shooting the ball. Like if you are going to start him, that means you're not starting Taurean Prince, who's shot it really well from 3. And because he's a worse shooter, like you can't really start Andre Jackson at the 2 at that point because he's not a good shooter either. They just wouldn't have enough spacing. So we'll see how this goes. It's just not a good fit. I feel they're probably going to be a first round exit team, but we'll see. They still got to play it out. The Hawks, they were without Terrence Mann and Karis LeVert in this one, so shorthanded, but they still are able to get the win against a Giannis-less Bucks team. Dom Barlow got the start at power forward in this one. So that would partially explain Bobby Portis' big line. And Mohamed Gay, he had the best game of his career with 15 points, 12 rebounds, 4 blocks off the bench. So I will be taking a look at his rating to see if that game made a big dent in his in his statistical production, I should say. Trae Young, he had 24 points and 7 assists to cancel out Dame's 23 and 10. And then Dyson Daniels, he had 15 points and 10 assists. I'm not sure if that's a season high, but that's a lot more assists than he usually gets. And it's worth noting that 15 points and 10 assists is a lot more than what Andre Jackson had, his Milwaukee counterpart. Jackson had 0 points on 0 of 1 shooting. So big difference between those guys as far as like archetypes go. Heading over to the OKC Thunder, Chet Holmgren made his return and got the start next to Isaiah Hartenstein. So they did go with the double big lineup. So I changed his position to power forward. He had a pretty modest game, 4 points, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks, but still really big development for him to be back in the lineup. And as a result of me moving him to the 4, I did move everybody else down in the lineup. So I've got Jalen Williams at his natural small forward. He goes up to a 90 overall because of that. He had 27 points in this one, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 9 of 19 from the field, 8 of 10 from the free throw line. Lou Dort didn't play in this one, but I bumped him down to the 2. I expect that he'll start over Cason Wallace when all is said and done. And then Andrew Wiggins, he's had a good couple games. He had 18 points in this one. He had 41 a couple games ago. He's somebody whose rating I'm going to have to just check in on briefly. On the Raptors, nothing to really talk about here as Brandon Ingram, he's even if he was available to make his debut, he's still been out recovering from his sprained ankle that he's been out for 2 months for. So nothing new to report there. Heading over to the Phoenix Suns, they beat the Utah Jazz in overtime, 135 to 127. Devin Booker had 47 points and 11 assists. KD and Beal were both out. Grayson Allen got his second consecutive start. He had 21 points and a season-high 7 threes. Remember when he led the league in three-point percentage last year? Only his third start this year. And then the Utah Jazz, we will finish up with them. Walker Kessler, he had a pretty big line, 19 points and 22 rebounds. And then Isaiah Collier, he's a +1 for me in my roster. 15 points, and then had a season high 13 assists. He's had double-figure assists in 3 consecutive games. He's a lot better as a starter, 11 points, 8 assists, 31 minutes per game, and a 50 true shooting percentage, which may not seem like much, but as a reserve, he was only 38 true shooting percentage. So that's essentially the difference between being Elfrid Payton or completely unplayable. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you like this format, and be on the lookout for more NBA 2K roster content. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.